Oi Dimelo Cinema Club, Bienvenidos, why, Oi Dimelo Cinema Club. There you go. Thanks for joining us. You could have been anywhere in the world tonight, but you decided to be with us, and we appreciate that, and we appreciate you. I'm hosting tonight's episode where we are reviewing the documentary from 1990, Paris is Burning. It's a classic. I've never seen it before. I've been recommended it a lot. Usually when you get into like documentary circles, it's one that comes up. Hadn't seen it. And it's usually one that comes up when you talk about like drag. And I've gone to a few drag shows in my life out in Los Angeles, West Hollywood specifically. And I was like, oh, this is an interesting subculture. It's fun. You know, it's unique. It's fierce, and I watched a TV show called Pose on FX, and I watched it with a friend, and she told me that you got to check this thing out, this documentary. If you know about that, then it'll explain the whole world of Pose. Because I knew nothing about this world. So let's jump right into it, and we're going to get straight into first impressions. Now, I had quite a few, but we'll save mine. Because this movie, I feel, holds up in a lot of ways, in my personal opinion. We'll get into that. Let's go into first impressions. Steve, why don't you start us off?
All righty. Let's start out by saying I didn't watch it. I'm kidding. I did watch it. No, I did watch it. First impressions, honestly, like I tend, especially when someone else is recommending the pick, I tend to not watch the trailers. I didn't for this one either, but going into it, I sort of kind of knew what was gonna be about, because on last one, even though I didn't want no one to tell me any spoilers or anything about what it was about, people talked, so I kind of came with the preconceived notion of like, this could be either really good or really bad. So that was initially my thinking, but then as I was watching it, not only is it extremely digestible because it's short, but is absolutely fascinating. Because I honestly wish I would have watched this a long time ago, primarily because I've had friends that have invited me to drag shows and things like that. I've only been to like maybe a couple of them, but it was because I always felt confused. Like I didn't know like what was going on, like what was the whole deal. But this actually helped me kind of get into that world and really explore it. And because when you go to these like balls and shows, like there's not really much really getting explained to you. Like it almost feels like a talent show, but like you don't like with if you watch this first and then actually go live and check them out, you walk out with so much more of the show versus me being like a straight guy, like going to those shows with no context whatsoever. Like I always walked out confused. I was like, what's going on? What's the point of this? You know? But watching this particular documentary, it really opened me up to this whole new world. And it showed me, man, that no matter where you at, like there's always like levels of even danger with you following your own dreams and like kind of feeling that sense of freedom that we all seek. That even in places like in America and other places, like not everybody's really free, whether it's from their parents or whether it is like from them to express themselves. But it was a great documentary. So first impressions, amazing.
Awesome. I concur with a lot of those ideas and thoughts. Michaela, you're actually the one who recommended this documentary as a possible choice, which made me think about it. So let's hear your first impressions.
This is probably one of my favorite films of all time. Like I've probably watched it at least 4 or 5 times. I think that this is like a very important part of our culture, especially with like LGBTQ and all of that. Because like it's such like so much of like modern slang comes from this specific subculture. and it's a part of history that like a lot of people want to try to like try to make it into like something that it's not, like it's like a party culture, when it's like, no, this is actually a part of our culture that is important and beautiful, and it just comes from like a sense of like really wanting to create a world for like a safe world for people who are different. Like I identify as bisexual, and it's just so important for people to understand that like there are others out there and they do beautiful and wonderful things, and like they don't have to hide. Like there's a way for you to be who you are, and you just have to find that circle. And this is such an important documentary to me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Those are some pretty acute first impressions. I had many of the same ones, especially with the slang, which is going to be a whole nother section that we'll dive into intimately.
Subsection of the subsection.
It's a subsection of
subculture.
Subculture, and the fact that it's a subculture for sure. It's that's something that we should definitely dive into. Dino, why don't you go ahead?
I'm surprised. I don't remember hearing about this documentary. I would have loved to have also seen this years ago. Even when I first moved to the US. This is such a great documentary. Like it holds up, and I'm sure we'll talk about it later. But I even think about, I went to this little liberal arts school in Alabama, and it was called it was known as the gay capital of the South. And it's this tiny town in Alabama, and it's like you got your Bible Belt, Bible humpers, and then you also had all these gay people, and by all I mean not a whole, whatever amount would be in a small college, and then you have all these like foreign sports player also, and there was only one gay club in all of Birmingham back then. So I even went with some friends and we saw some drag shows in Alabama, and just the whole gay scene in Alabama back in the early 2000s is also just ridiculous. But anyway, I digress. Point being, I wish I would have seen this before, so that then also if I had new friends that I had made, or they were maybe thinking about coming out, or they hadn't come out yet, but or they were out with me, but not, with society, if you will, or with their families. I feel like this is something to recommend. And I know, just as a way of like, hey, look, like, it's going to be hard. It's going to be all this, but there is the support. So, I really enjoyed it. It was so many great things about it. And I hope we get into all of them. But yeah, I wish I would have seen it before, just as it's going to be in one of my like top 3 or top 5 documentary recommendations from now on. I think it's a really important film that's out there.
Yeah, I agree with that too. As far as documentary recommendations, it's going to be pretty high up there for me. So I guess we'll cover that at the very end. JP, please. PJ, we call him PJ.
JP, cousin. Running a little over an hour. It's surprising that, contrary to the subject matter, the timing did not drag.
The zing.
I was like, I wish I have a trophy for, and I do. Here you go. This is the most studious trophy that I'll get to.
Yay! I want the trophies from the documentary. I saw those trophies and I was like, wow, that could barely fit in a New York apartment.
Yo, I want that earring from Egypt, was it? The dude got?
He got
Ninja Willem.
Yeah. The thing he was the most proud of wasn't even about the jewelry. It was the fact that he bought it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
right.
he didn't mop it.
He didn't mop it.
Because he worked and earned that particular thing. This is the second time watching it because, as Michaela said, she's watched it a few times, and one of those showings I was there for it too. I was surprised because I did not know that the documentary was this short. First time watching it with her, it didn't feel that short at all. It almost felt like a bit longer because you have a good cast of characters that you get to see all perspectives of this particular ball and the importance of the ball and how they live life, and it was intriguing because I did not know that I don't know that much about drag culture at all, and I've been to a few drag shows as well since being in Hollywood and going to school in Hollywood. I too had a lot of friends who happened to do that sort of thing, and I've been to it, and just learning kind of what at least knowing the core of it. It was a very informative and a learning experience, and it's sad because my first thoughts I was because I did vaguely remember that there's a few places where things turn very sad and tragic, but I was surprised at how more uplifting the film was. That these people they are not embarrassed and they're not ashamed of who they are, and they found a place where they could express and be themselves to their fullest amongst everyone else, and you see that some of them succeed and some of them not so much, and it's basically really the life of an artist. They just happen to have a different art form than what I'm used to doing. So it was very relatable with that. And yeah, overall, I enjoyed it. Made me sad. I mean, I'm sure we're going to talk about that. But it was just one of those things the film, even though this is my second time viewing it, you end up rooting for these people, even those who have been at it for decades, and you can tell they're tired and they know that, their life is just barely near the end, but they're proud of who they are and they still strive for more. And those who do get more, you champion them, and then I don't know, man. But yeah, it was somewhat I don't want to say cathartic. Yeah, it was cathartic. Why not? Cathartic.
Yeah, that's great, JP. I concur with all that stuff too. All of you guys kind of hit it out of the park with your first impressions.
You'll get A's. You were all right.
I think you are all right. You guys all kind of nailed it. I don't even need to give you my first impression, really, because I feel like you guys already did it. You guys hit on everything that I actually want to talk about. So that's great. I really like that you said, JP, about the different cast of characters and people at different stages of their careers, because there's one thing that I think goes maybe a little underrated in this documentary, and it's that they got all these different age groups and all these different people from different experience levels. And that's a mark of a really good documentary of this type, right? We're talking about for lack of a better word, these artist show ponies who are putting on this show, who are putting on this art exhibition or whatever. And it's oh yeah, they got the beginner, they've got the guy who's never done it, who wants to do it, and then they've got the old veteran, the wily pro, who is going to tell you how everything is and how it changed and what it used to be. This is a documentary that's a documentaries documentary if you really think about it. It's really it's one of the greats, because it does exactly what I feel a great documentary should do. It does the thing where it takes a subject matter you may have never heard of or don't know anything about, and it raises your awareness and makes you ask a whole new set of questions about a subject matter that you know anything about, and it makes that it's exciting. It also makes it accessible to an audience that doesn't know anything about it. And I don't feel like there's any questions I have unanswered about that world after this documentary, and it did it relatively quick in 77-minute runtime. So what I want to get into it with you guys is, for funsies, I want to know, who are your favorite characters? Who did you most either identify with, or whose story did you find the most intriguing and educational? And which house would you belong to?
No Gryffindor here, just the legit houses, the OG houses.
Yeah,
the legendary children.
Which legendary children house?
You see her name? I imagine she.
Oh, hey. See, I thought all of you guys were Xtravaganza. I thought so because this is Dimelo. But I
kind of
just hear it out of your mouths.
It's just like one of those things where it's just like it was either DuPont or Xtravaganza. I couldn't decide. Like it's just they have like the best house mothers. Even though like but I also love LaBeija too. Like I think that's what I loved about this. It's just like I can't choose a favorite. You know, because like Peppa is very like fierce and she knows what this is. You know, and she shows what like a veteran who really like is still involved, whereas like there's Angela who's like she's up and coming still, like I mean not up and coming, she's like a mother, like she still is like the best of what she's doing, but she's like much more different in her approach to Pepper, and it's just I can't, you can't make me choose.
What about house though? Do you have is
Xtravaganza?
Yeah,
I think it's there.
I just wanted to, but I mean, people watching this might not know, so I just wanted to.
I wish we could just put all the houses like in the corner of the screen up there.
I know.
What's yours, Dino?
I just saw the name first off, and I was like, absolutely Ninja. That would be me. It also seems the thing that I would, it's the voguing house basically. Yeah. Probably where it revolutionized that whole idea of just voguing and all that. And to me, because that is great. Just it might be the closest thing I can get to that I'm really good at, except the whole like things I need.
Like I want to see you flip over, do the leg thing.
I was gonna say except things that you need like a core body muscle part to like be able to do stuff like that. It might be hard. But yeah, Ninja, just because but of characters, of a favorite character, I was telling Jason, I just love the idea of dressing up. Like they had the military one, they had the suits, they had to me that like character wise, that's my favorite. Just like hearing what these characters we're about to see, and then with the MC over it, also like giving a little bit like of a backstory in case you didn't know, like
that MC was incredible.
Yeah. Town and country, that's where you would find, like that. To me, just watching those ball costumes and seeing the title and description, that was my favorite characters of the whole thing.
Yeah, I would agree with a lot of that. JP, what do you think?
Many categories, in my opinion. I was like, oh my god, they have a category for everything. Holy shit! You started giving like, oh wait, you remember we saw those other categories? Well, guess what? There's actually more that we didn't bring up. I think the one that I liked the most was I don't know the person's name, but the more traditional like elderly one. I think they even ended the documentary itself. They ended it with that particular artist, but I don't recall the name. But
the one who had basically been doing that since the 50s.
Yeah, because like it was funny because they even brought up that like no one wears sequins or all this stuff anymore, and I can't help but think it's like, oh well, I saw RuPaul. It's gonna make a comeback in 30 years. It's fine. But I think the one who I actually kind of cheered on the most was Willi Ninja, the one who ended up actually in like some of the
music videos.
The music videos, and even going to Japan, because we found out earlier that like that's what he wanted to do, was to go to Japan, like show what his house and what his art is about, and he actually ended up doing that. Like out of everyone in the documentary, I think we progressing of story, we got to see him actually do and succeed the most. That we know, because I don't know how everyone else's story ended up ending after the film,
Yeah.
But like I thought, like he was for sure like one of the ones that you for sure rooted for, because even the passion that he had, like you could tell, like it was real, and you just can't help but feel happy when you find out, like, oh no, like yeah, like he's doing exactly what he was going for, and he's gonna keep on going with it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that too, man. It was great to see within the realm of the documentary somebody succeed in their desired way. Steve, how about you? What house do you belong to? What house who?
House, man. Dr. House. I love Dr. House. You know what I'm saying? No, I would say I'm also with Ninja just because of the whole the whole like arc of his story in particular. But this wasn't necessarily a house. I wanted to know more. I like there was this particular scene or scenes. It was just like two short scenes, I guess. That I was just when something happens on a film that you just go like, why didn't they cover this more? Like this part right here, I want to explore this part more.
What was
And
it?
It was the little kid.
Oh, yeah. I'm glad they kept going back to that little kid because I wanted to know more too.
Yeah, I'm like, yo, this kid is like 14, 15 years old. I mean, he looks younger than that.
He was 12.
Oh, 12. He was 12. 12 years old. This kid seemed
with a ton of confidence.
Yeah.
Like he didn't stutter once. He was just so like aware of, where he was and in the moment, and just it was beautiful, really.
I also don't think his parents were dead.
I had the feeling they kicked him out because
I had a feeling he just took off.
I mean, yeah, probably. You got to remember this thing is shot in the 80s.
Yeah.
In the 80s, and it doesn't come out to 90. Like it's being shot in what, like 84 or 86 or something like that.
There was definitely a New Year's ball in '86, but I think it started even a little before then.
Bro, but like that kid fascinated me. I was just like, why we need to cover this more? Like, what's like? I want to know the dynamic. I want to know how he got here. Like, I want to know how he met this guy that he's with. Like, I want to know all this stuff because I was legit. I'm not joking, but today in traffic, and it could have been that seed planted from that thing. I was literally in traffic just going like, how the fuck did Paul Walker meet his girlfriend, wife, whatever? Because she was 16 or something like that. So I'm like, it had to be like a mutual way, like a friend. Like it doesn't compute to me. And now we're talking about the 80s. That back in that day, there's no apps, there's no phones, there's no, it's like I'm even more intrigued of like how
just being out on the streets in the scene in New York. A lot of people in New York, so you go out any time of day, there's going to be somebody around.
Mm-hmm.
I like how at the end when they leave the club, when they leave the ball, it's light outside. Like they were going hard all night winning these trophies. Like
Oh, bro, I don't know if you've been like when LA is popping, like in the morning, you see like people full costume dressed up coming out of these.
I have seen, yeah, you're right. I have seen that.
Okay. I didn't even think about that because I was like early dawn, right? Like the sun was just barely coming out when they were leaving that theater. My God.
Well, I mean, they do mention, that it starts late because they're basically escorts, working as escorts or doing late night gigs, and so clearly it would start, I don't know, like midnight, 2 a.m., something like that.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you guys this, because this was like really interesting to me, because like I love language, and there's a lot of slang in this thing, and there's a whole lexicon of language for their community, and I loved it. I thought it was fascinating. The thing is, that kind of weirds me out is the appropriation of it today, because all those things they say now, like 90% of them are being said today as though they were invented within the decade. And to go back and watch them talk about, serving realness and being fierce and what all of them. Like I never heard mopping before.
Bro, I didn't know voguing was throwing shade.
Voguing, throwing
right?
shade. like all that
Madonna.
stuff.
Like, I can tell you the whole history of how it got appropriated. Okay, it started with Madonna with Vogue, and that kind of got picked up.
That's what Jason said, that Madonna stole, basically all the moves.
She saw it at a club and she loved it so much and she made a song about it. And then once RuPaul became as popular, because like that's where it really got, where it really took off, was because of RuPaul's Drag Race and how all of the stars, or like all the people who got made by that show, how quickly they became viral. Like, these are all musicians. These, like, they're artists, and the popularity of their no, seriously, like, go to Instagram, go to Twitter, like, you'll see, like, if you watch a series of old RuPaul's Drag Race, they're saying this nonstop. So, like, a lot of that, like, culture comes from, like, RuPaul becoming as famous as he did, as a model. So, and that's, like, another thing, too, is, like, it's a big part of fashion culture, too. It's, like, a lot of these trans people who manage to be real, like, manage to incorporate that into fashion lingo.
All that's amazing. And I mean, I guess that makes a lot of sense. And I figured it was something like that. It's just a little disheartening, as a minority to see, someone's entire lingo and culture being appropriated in a very, mostly, I'm going to be honest with you, mostly by like white women, and it's just like, okay, you guys took that one and have made it real corny. Something that's actually really cool. But it's dope, man. And there's a lot of stuff in there. There's a lot of stuff that you hear that, you process it and you're like, wait a minute, this stuff is 40 years old. And you got like teenagers saying it now, like it just happened. Like, it took 40 years for this culture to take, it's mainstream now. Let's not even like pretend.
So but early 2000 is, I feel, when all of that lingo hit. Again, is it just, again, also for me, language-wise, early 2000s is when I moved to the US. So I was just picking up those, I don't know. I feel like that verbiage has been around, but
I feel like I didn't catch it until like maybe the end of the last decade, like maybe a little over 10 years ago.
Okay.
That's when I started like really hearing it.
So the aughts, as the kids are calling it these days.
The what?
The aughts.
The aughts?
Yeah.
What is that?
2011, 12. They're the aughts. Or no, that's 2000. I don't know. Anyway.
If that's what you're calling it, I think.
Like, I mean, like I said, it's just like, it's one of those things where, like, the more visible this culture becomes, like, the more we find aspects of it that we like and take.
For sure. And you know what? I kind of love that. It's a lot of, there's a part of me that's like, all right, you appropriated it, but also if we give credit to where it came from, and we adapt it into popular culture, I kind of feel like in a way that's, and I could be wrong, I could be way off base here, guys, and let me know if I am, but I kind of feel like maybe that's what they want, right? Or I could be way off base and it's like, no, this is ours, stay away from it. We created it, it's for us. It could be.
Well, I mean, sorry, I think it's a bit of both, because like on one side, like the more mainstream like these subjects become, like the more like acceptable it is to be trans, to be gay, to like the more that we realize that people are aware and like are part of our world, like the more acceptable it becomes. But on the other hand, like you said, you don't want someone who's like using the whole idea of realness. Like, realness is such like a very complex concept, and just to be like, oh yeah, I'm giving like super model real, and just turning it into like a very shallow way for like excuse for dressing up, when it's really talking about like having to hide in the closet and having to appear, like that's not a good thing, and we need to respect where that came from.
For sure, absolutely. Wow, that's kind of powerful, actually. I hadn't even considered it that way, but that's big. Anybody else have any thoughts about that? About the slang and the popular culture, and how these things are popular culture now? They are a part of our culture. I don't think they're pop culture. I think they're a part of our culture now.
Oh, definitely.
Well, the one thing I guess has changed, being part of the culture, it's basically, for me again, like this being subculture is now, thanks to RuPaul and media and everything else, it is just part of culture, right?
Mhm.
And
Also, we are saying this from an LA perspective too, though. Like middle America, we're like, what are you talking about? Maybe.
that's why I said the way I just because it's like, yeah, it's been, part of my culture, if you will, just because I accepted it. But it definitely seems from everything else around that it's, getting higher up there, and it is part of the culture for sure. Whereas NASCAR can stay subculture. Come at me. You guys can email Steve Dez about that. Don't email me, but he'll take all my complaint emails.
Put your email up there for the complaints.
I will forward them to you.
Well, I mean, that's like why the internet's been such a big part of this. Like, I mean, look at what's like the big hot topic right now is Lil Nas. You know, what do you think most of that imagery comes from? Like that's part of his culture that he's bringing out because of the internet and stuff. Like that's why we're seeing more of this and why we're hearing more of this is because there are people in the middle of Illinois or Texas or who do this and really make this part of their craft, and like we're seeing it now. We're seeing just how many like lives this actually touches, and like that's such in the fact that we have to recognize that there is history, that this isn't something that's new and like the kids are doing it. Like this is something that has a culture, that has evolved and that has a language and that has come, like this didn't come from nowhere. And that's why this is such an important film, because we've always been there.
Now, I can't get over how important it is,
right.
And how, you hope a movie like this, and in a lot of ways, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but you hope that a movie like this doesn't have to be as important 40 years from now. You hope like, oh, we've solved most of these issues, and this is kind of like, just a historical look back. It'll always be important in the sense that it was the first, it's a good documentary, and it really opened up like the eyes of a lot of people who, foreigners really, who didn't know that this thing existed. But you hope that in the future, like a lot of these things, I guess we can get into like the struggles and the tragedy of it, and you guys can tell me what you think about a lot of that stuff, so we can put that like right in the middle so we can get the happier stuff later. But it's interesting to me.
So wait, where are we going?
We're going to go into the tragedies of the thing.
Okay.
But it's also interesting to me that, like I said, you hope that in 40 years from now, like none of this is really like talking points anymore, that we can like let each other just like be ourselves and express ourselves however we want without like fear of, retaliation or violence or, people trying to suppress, who you want to be. But I really would like to hear from you guys and speak freely about some of the tragedies in this and, how that might have affected you, or did it catch you off guard, or, how do you think that was presented in the documentary?
Well, I guess like the main one right near the end, the one from the Extravaganza house.
Venus.
Yeah, Venus, and it's so weird because like you even the way that the film presents it, it's one of the last things that you think is literally gonna happen. Like they're showing you footage of Venus at the beach and like just listening to music and just hanging out at a pier in New York, and then you hear the mother talking about Venus, and then all of a sudden the mother starts talking in the past tense, and then you find out that Venus died in a very horrible way. They don't get detail, but it's
horrible. It was murder.
They didn't find her until
4 days later.
4 days later in the hotel room under the bed. That's terrible. And then even the mom starts to say like, well, that's basically the risk that we live. That's part of life. And they don't bring it up as much, and just to be reminded like, yeah, that's how fragile they can be, especially in the professions that they have to do in order to survive. And do what they want in life. And it's, I don't know, like they touch upon it. It's so weird. They kind of dance around the whole prostitution and like being escorts. I don't think they ever use the word prostitution or the word escorts, but you know, they imply it very hard, but it's only touched on a few times in the film. And then to find out like that's kind of how she ended up being murdered was because of that. It's like, well, fucking damn.
Well, like I think a big part of it is just like it's hard to express just how prevalent this is, especially because of like the way that we show trans people. Like, and like it's very interesting that today is Trans Visibility Day, March 31st. Just pointing that out.
Oh, wow, this is very apropos. I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, it's literally.
I was gonna lie and be like, yeah, that's why Jason picked this versus
shit,
Burning, because
credit.
yeah, he knew we were
Synchronicity, man. But like for some odd reason, we always portray like the transsexual woman as like almost like a betrayer. Like there's like a very interesting documentary called Disclosure on Netflix right now that really goes into how damaging that image is and how that's like a part of our collective and why that's like such a big part of the violence that like is geared towards these individuals. And you know, like even Venus said like that's me and my little secret between my legs, you know. It's just like, how do you, like, this was during a time where it's just like we are just now getting to the point where people are comfortable with being like, no, these are my pronouns, you know. Like, how could you imagine like the language and how would you actually talk about that during a time where it's just like you can't even say that you're trans to an individual without them thinking that there's something seriously wrong with you. Like, how do you have that conversation to someone who doesn't like belong to that community at all? Like, how were they supposed to know how these documentarians were going to like?
It was super interesting. Sorry, kind of just to add that on the conversation of trans and pronouns and everything in today, and sex changes and all that, because that's kind of surprised me of like, oh, I guess they were already having sex changes back then. I didn't think, you know, that in the mid to late 80s that was already a thing.
That was a little surprising.
Right. But it was super interesting, that conversation that we've had to talk about the LGBTQ community and trans and how to call them and all that and what is what. In this documentary back then, the people in that group were having the same discussion. Because I'm glad they delved into it of like, okay, people getting surgery, people doing this, and then doing one thing is just getting tits. Another thing is, you know, getting a vagina and the reasonings for that. And kind of that's the tragedy, right? Because it was there of like, if I get a full sex change, if I get rid of the penis, then I can move somewhere far and I can be a woman. And then one of the older ones is even talking about like, you know, women don't get treated all that well either. So you might assume that getting rid of the penis and getting a vagina that you're going to be treated well and no violence is going to come to you. But you don't know that because, you know, like it was so smart. Some of the conversations and stuff that they were saying was so like eloquent and still on point today. And it's conversations of like, yeah, you think you're getting out of this group that's been looked down and you aren't gonna get that hate, but you don't know that other group that you're getting to is also, you know, feeling and gets equally a different amount of hate and all that.
Well, I also think, no offense to like Pepper's views on this, but I feel like Pepper kind of missed the point. But that shows that Pepper isn't trans. Like Pepper,
right.
Who's a drag queen. Whereas, like, because like I find that the way that he talked about their not hurtful, but like you could. I don't know.
It was shade. It was shade.
No, it wasn't shade.
Huh?
No, shade's something different. Like he wasn't attacking these individuals. He's just saying that he thinks that this is something new in his generation, or like in this younger generation, to like become like more part of like this, when it's just like, no, like these are actually women who are just born, like who were assigned the wrong sex.
Correct.
Like
Correct.
that's what this is. But we don't. But then again, that was like the point I was making earlier, is that we didn't know that
Right.
at the
Correct.
time.
That's why.
And
yeah,
actually,
yeah.
the sex change operation, like the first one that went public, happened in the 50s, but it was kind of perfected during World War II. If y'all wanted to know that.
I kind of did. Thank you.
Dropping that.
I was like perfected. I don't know. Yeah, I'm like, huh.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Yeah, but it's just I enjoyed seeing that conversation, correctly or wrong, right? But the misconceptions and conversation was back then was going on there. It's like not everything was written kind of in stone, right? So as it evolves, it's very fluid, as a term that's become more common also, of like, another reason why I really like this documentary, because it's this like pinpoint in the history of that, and of trying to figure out how do you call this? What do you call this? So I enjoy it because it is pretty. It's before social media. So that like it's not like they were doing like a documentary about us. Like it's so different. It's more realistic than anyone that's vlogging right now, right?
Right.
In that way, the movie serves as this wonderful time capsule too, because it's like here we are, mid '80s, and it sort of touches everything. I feel like, if you guys feel like this documentary might have missed something, please bring that up. But one thing that me and Dino were thinking when we watched it, like this is in the height of like the AIDS epidemic. Are they going to bring that up at any point? And they did. And I was pleased about that. Like you have to address that, and you don't have to address it because when they're making this thing, they were in the middle of it,
right?
And nobody had enough information yet, either, But I'm glad they at least brought it up to let us know, like, okay, this is a thing that's happening, and there are reasons to be concerned. But there's a lot of stuff like that in the documentary that I found. And again, not to beat a dead horse, but I just feel like this thing holds up in this really, really great way. Do you guys feel like there's anything this documentary might have missed, or you wish they would have touched on, or anything like that?
No, I think it's a pretty good beginning guide to what this world is, and what broad brushstrokes of what it means to be a gay or trans man and woman in this kind of crazy world where, especially in a place that it's considered not it's still something they had to hide back then. But I could only imagine what it'd be like to have someone stumble upon this in the middle of nowhere America, and seeing all of these individuals still managing to tell their truth in a way that seems relatively safe. How mind-blowing that could have been for someone.
I can imagine that would be super exciting and freeing and liberating and wonderful for them. That'd be a wonderful find. One thing that I wish the documentary would have had a little bit more of, and I don't know if it's that important, but I would have liked for there to have been women who were transitioning, or to see women's perspective on this world, or how they kind of were into it.
I think you're about to touch on one of the biggest, not controversies, but one of the biggest debates in this community. Because there are actual women who identify themselves as drag queens because they do the makeup, and they find it very sexist that this is a very male oriented.
Oh, that's interesting. I don't know anything about that. So go ahead. Yeah, educate us a little bit on that. I've never heard of this.
Yeah, no, this is something if you go on, it's more prevalent. It's some people think that because this is men who have always had to hide this part of themselves, that allowing women into the space, or women who say that they're a drag queen, when it's just well, you've never had to hide the fact that you can wear eyeliner. You can go out in the street in your full drag and everyone would just think you were fashionable. Whereas if I go out in the street like this, I will probably be attacked. And they're saying that that's the difference. And it's another form of appropriation on the other side of the field, it's women saying, no, like this is something that I do, that I enjoy. There's no other space for, like, no other community that does quite gets what I'm doing. And I think that this is an expression of my gender. And like, this is an expression of my sexuality. And so I want to be included in that. So it's a very interesting kind of thing where it's like, is this better for us, like as women who don't have to deal with that kind of prejudice, step on the back line and like enjoy it? Or is this something that we should be included in? So
is there a situation or a piece of the culture where women performing drag dressed as men? Is that a thing?
Oh yeah, that's a whole thing. Like drag kings are totally a thing.
Drag kings, yeah, duh.
Yeah, that's totally a thing.
Obviously.
I don't know if they have a space in the ball, but I can't imagine like that's like I can't imagine that not being a thing though. Like I feel like there've been competitions. So
yeah.
But like some people don't want to express themselves that way. Like they want like the fabulosity of like the sequins and the beads and the glamour, you know? But like that's what the whole debate is like not like RuPaul's Drag Race not allowing female contestants and not like transsexual. Like they have had transsexual women on the show. But like people who are women who were like assigned women at birth and they still identify as women who believe that they're part of this art form. Like they've never had a contestant like that on, and that's like a very big part of contention in some of these communities.
Do you have a position in that?
I kind of lean more towards the drag queens in this because if I'm someone who like experiments with fashion a lot, you know. But at the end of the day, like if I put on like fake eyebrows, fake eyelashes, like the craziest of makeups, and like I'm wearing like a dress and high heels that like make me 6 feet tall, I'm not going to be beaten up over that. You know, like I could go I might be made fun of for wearing like something too weird. You know, like someone might make fun, but like they're not going to like tell me how I'm going to hell because, you know, like I feel like that since there's that prejudice there,
is it
that I would never understand.
Sorry, kind of. I get an open question with that. Well, it's not a two-parter, but it's a one. Do lesbians also do drag? Because I feel like there were lesbians in the documentary because I feel like the MC.
I'm gonna chime in on this one, even though I'm not the representative of lesbians in the world. But I've been with quite a few lesbians. They are. But
did you ever think you would start a sentence like that?
He always
Well, I've been with quite a few lesbians myself.
Steve.
No, but the one that they did in the documentary that they were representing basically the real world, that's something that lesbians do a lot. And I've seen it in Puerto Rico, I've seen it in America, which is like, you know, some of them dress a little bit more like a guy, like what a straight man will dress like. Sort of like, you know, backwards cap, baggy shorts, stuff like that. So I've seen that part a lot. But I don't know about the whole like glamorous side.
Yeah. I it's not something that I think is put a spot, but like I think that's what when we say drag king, that's a big part of that is like trying to show off like realness and being able to pass as a man. But again,
I honestly think even that is very new, like very, because I've only in my lifetime thus far, I've only seen one person that is like a woman that she dresses up as a guy and she actually like performs. Like I produce shows and she's been there, like actually like doing comedy and all sorts of things and just having fun with people.
Right.
But yeah.
Oh, sorry.
That'd be something I'd have to look into more, definitely.
So I guess part of it was like in RuPaul because it was of is that lesbians aren't getting in, or is it like a straight women that want to be a part of drag? I guess that's my.
Well, that's the thing. It's like I think a lot of people like assume that sexuality is like actually a part of this.
Right.
And this is actually like gender expression, but like this is again like a big part of the language that we're still like figuring out and trying to put into place. But like typically, like it's just like if you, like I said, are assigned female at birth and you still identify as female or a woman, and then you do drag, like I think that's where the contention is.
Right.
But like I could be wrong. Like we might be getting like all of the internet hate because I said that. But
just to kind of answer your question, again, we're all talking on perspective, our experiences. Personally, when it comes to that, the more extravagant look or dressing up and stuff like that, the only at least females that I've seen interesting in that primarily identify as pansexuals.
Mm-hmm. That could be put, but like I said, it's just one of those not weird things. It's just part of like them wanting to be part, like having their art recognized by a community.
Right.
That it's just I don't know. It's just like I feel like there's just a level of prejudice.
No pressure to answer all this stuff. Dino has Google. He can.
No. I'm glad now because when I put my foot in my mouth, I'm just gonna say like, well, Michaela told me this was cool, so I'm like
so excited to talk about this stuff. Like I feel like this is like a part of like something that I'm very interested in, and like I've done a lot of like looking into.
Right.
And like it's just fun to like actually have like a platform to be like, yeah, this is what I think about this.
Well, I think again that's where everything goes back to, right? Is just having the conversation, right? And that's why, to me, the documentary again, it's great to do that, start conversations, but also like seeing the conversations that they were having back then amongst themselves, right? Like, right now it's all about me and you and stuff, but this documentary is them, right? So that's what I thought was great. It's like, somewhat conversational about where everyone fits or what's allowed, what's not allowed, what's the boundary, that kind of stuff.
Right.
So there was an unexpected moment in this thing for me that I want to touch on. I want to get you guys' perspective about. And it was very appropriate, but I just didn't think the documentarian was going to go there. Like I said, I didn't see it coming. She talks about race and placement in America and social class and a lot of these different things that, like, whoa, like let's get into that. It was the part where they're doing a segment in the ball, and the guy's doing like the stormtrooper marching thing, and he has the American flag, and he has like this monologue or this voiceover about what America means to him, and he like stands on the flag, and just as a performance art piece, like it was super powerful. And then they get into a little bit of like what race has to do with all of this. And most of the people in this documentary, 99% of them, 95% of them are Black and Hispanic. And so like this is very much like their side of their New York culture. I like to hear what you guys thought about that, and what did you get out of those moments in the documentary? Let's start with you, Steve. We haven't heard from you in a minute. Or actually, JP, we haven't heard from you much either.
I was like, Steve just spoke. Very unforgettable, though, that Steve. Or very forgettable, I guess.
I'm just kidding.
I know what you were doing, JP.
Yeah.
I was
You didn't sell it with your eyes, JP. That's what it was. Your eyes was telling us this is fake.
These are lies. Okay. What was I gonna say? I think someone said it like that was very on point during that section in the film, where it's like we are trying to strive for like white culture, like because white people, they don't have to worry about a lot of things, and most of them are born already into privilege, and like it's funny because like they even said it like oh, you like that person has to look like a rich man. But not just any rich man, like a rich white man. Like he will always be Black. He will always be that color, but he has to present himself as a rich white person. And it was weird that they had to specify on that. Like even with glamour and the elegance, like when they were showing those really high-end stores, right? And they even said the same thing too with those, like, oh, we have to look like rich white women, you know. And I thought that was pretty much like, it's something that I feel like a lot of us can relate to, because what is it, coding, whenever we have to try to present ourselves as like,
Right.
you know, efficient, or like a fucking cog in the fucking world that's a fucking clock, is like, oh no, I'm
right? Is that what it's
right?
called? Freaking?
Yeah, it's like, hello there, how are you doing? You know, I'm exaggerating, of course, but like, and it's strange because even within our own cultures, when like a guy like me, the way that I talk, this is just how I naturally talk. But like, even folks think, oh, no, that's very like very white or imperialistic or whatever the fuck. Like, you're betraying your own culture. But it's crazy that, you know, the way that success is seen, or even wealth, or like, oh, I want to be fucking rich and wealthy. Like, they tend to mention like, oh, these white people, you know, and how it sucks because like I don't want to say it's mostly true. There is truth in it, but it was just, I thought it was kind of sad that a lot of the folks felt that way. That in order to be on top, you have to like basically copy white culture, or what is successful in white culture. You know?
I think we're still a little bit there, man. I feel like in the last few years we're starting to come out of that a little bit. Like we're starting to not see like white is right in all things. You know, like whatever their culture dictates is the way that we should move in order to find acceptance, and that's like the crescendo of all things. But that was very. I'm glad that piece was in the movie. That part was in the movie, because it's important to remember that is how a vast majority of minorities in America feel, and they've been programmed to feel that way and made to feel that way. You know, you're not worthy unless you're up here with these people who kind of have, you know, like you said, a certain sense of privilege, you know, given to them, and you know, everyone else sort of shut out, and you're fighting amongst each other to get out of that section of being shut out. Like, I made it out of the shutouts, so that makes me, you know, valuable, and you know, that's not good. But I'm glad that was in a documentary, man. That was an important moment, I thought.
Yeah, that was a happy surprise for me. I wasn't thinking about it that way, you know, of just like also having all these different subsections in a ball. Like, I just wasn't thinking about that. Like, there was like the business, like the this and that. And I thought it was great. Again, I thought it just adds to how many levels. Like, someone, I don't know how the trailer is for this, but someone, like, if you just like randomly tell someone about this or whatever, and it could easily come out, it's a documentary about drag in the 80s. So, like, but there's
so much more about it.
Right. And the documentary could have just played on that. Like, let's see this dress up and like whatever. But like, it delved into so much more, and bringing that up. And then it's like, not only are we already just in the closet, but then if they're like black, or you know, mainly black, you know,
that was like the first line in the film. Like, that was like the first thing that was said.
It was so powerful.
Strikes against me.
Yeah, it was so powerful, and then bringing it up in the competition, right? Of just like, even just like, oh, they'll never hire us to be a lawyer, or if we do, we have to do this.
If
kind
we
of
look
like
like
that.
a lawyer,
yeah, like we have to
maybe
do
like
executive.
Yeah, that's what it was. Like,
that was so powerful, because it's like, if you dress the part, you be the part.
Yeah.
But even more like, you know, even like more like an acute sort of realization of that is they believe that if they can make other people believe, then it was possible. And that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
There are so many unqualified people who are given the tools and given the resources and given the costume, and we all believe this person's a great lawyer, this person's a great senator, this person's a great business person, this person's a great leader, just because they look the part.
Yeah.
And we trust them. And I won't give any percentages, but a lot of the time, they are not those things.
I mean, dress like the job you right? Dress like the job you want, not the job you have, or whatever. But even more so than that, I like the idea of them. It's not like that you want, but it's like if I dress like this, I can show them that I'm capable. That's what it was also, I think, really big. That it's like I'll show them that I can.
I feel like so much was said with just that little piece of the film, that little like 90 seconds. They broke down so much.
Yeah.
What I wonder is, was that like our thinking because we watched it together, or did you guys feel the same way? Is that what was that the message that Livingston was trying to like give to the audience?
Oh, definitely. Like I said, it was one of the first lines in the film, and like they keep touching back, and like that's like the whole like culture of like balls is like showing who your potential, like who you want to be. If the world was perfect, like that's what they're creating.
Yeah.
You know. So, and it's just like, and then like after that, like he has his whole spiel about how like everyone wanted to, like when he was young, everyone wanted to look like Marilyn Monroe or Liz Taylor, but what he actually found in himself is that he wanted to look like Linda Horne, you know, and how like that wasn't acceptable because she was a black actress.
Yeah.
You know, like I feel like that, like race is such a big part of these people, like a part of this culture, you know. So,
Yeah,
like I said, like the fact that they were willing to include it and be like, no, like this is a big part of what this is and why we come together and why this is important.
such
such
good filmmaking, man. So thoughtful.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't know if she knew that she would be making something that would have this much like staying power and this much resonance to people like outside of the culture. For it's amazing though. So let's go ahead and wrap this thing up. I realized that I didn't give you guys like which house I would belong to and who I identify with, but it would have been House LaBeija. Because they were like the legendary house. They won.
I don't know about that. Them. No.
Everybody
if you say I'm the
that House LaBeija was the one, and I would want to be a part of the one.
I thought it was LaBeija people saying that LaBeija was the house to be.
Other house
just most popular dead mother, and her house speaks for herself.
Boom.
I saw that.
That's like Draymond Green saying he's the best defender of all time.
But everybody, like, there was an old house, and the other person that used to rule the house before her was ruled with the iron fist, and he was like more subtle, and people kind of appreciated that or whatever. But and you know what? Another tragic moment just before we wrap this thing up was the guy who used to run one of the houses and brought Venus into the game, I believe. And he died at 25 years old.
He died a year before. Well, in 85, because they showed the date, and it was 85. So a year before what we think they started taping, which would be 96.
It's so sad, man. Like these people live these super short lives for whatever reason because they're putting themselves in like a lot of danger with the lifestyle that they are living. That was really kind of heartbreaking too, and we didn't even get a chance to meet that guy. You know what I mean? But knowing that he was somebody's mentor and lived his life and was out of there at 25 was really disheartening.
Well, and then Venus also,
and
right?
then she kind of fell into the same
pattern
and even talked about it.
Yeah, she
talked
that she had a previous incident,
and then like you might get killed, and you might and I don't know, the whole finding under the mattress. I thought that was like, oh, that's funny. It's in movies, and then whatever. And then to hear someone actually like that happens, it's just like
this is a lot.
Well, like think about the disdain. Like think like the way that crime was committed. Like you could just like that, the amount of like shame that person felt. Like they had to stuff her under. The amount of hate that is so unnecessary is just.
I just didn't think that was a thing, like.
Yeah, that was a lot. The amount of shame and disdain, and also maybe just trying to like hide the body to give himself some time to get away. I don't know. I'm just
but like it's just like the fact that they took the time to like we should.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad, and I'm glad that. I'm not happy that that's in the documentary, but I'm happy that they decided to give us that information because it paints.
Well, and I think that that's what's so powerful about this documentary as a whole is it's filled with so much like sparkle and life, and like these are individuals who like deal with this on such a regular basis.
Yeah.
You know, but they still manage to like live their life to the fullest, and they're cavorting on beaches, and they're wearing chiffon blouses because they made them. And I think that's what makes this such a powerful documentary is like, yes, like their lives are just so filled with tragedy and hate. Like there's just like so much that they have to deal with, but they deal with it with like such fun and grace and strength that like you see that and you can admire that in these individuals. And I think that's what makes this so powerful and uplifting.
For sure. For sure. So to wrap it up, let's jump into it. It was good. It was fun while it lasted. Let's talk about whether or not we would recommend this movie to our friends and who we would recommend it to and how we would recommend it. JP, why don't you start us off, bucko?
I mean, if anything, I'm sure almost everyone that I know has already seen this film, so it's kind of hard to like who actually recommend this. Basically anyone. I mean, yeah, I probably recommend it to everybody. And like, it's so weird because like we touched on it for a little bit where like it's such a short film, but it does not feel its length. It doesn't feel like a short trip at all. Like you get a lot of information out of like the 70 plus minutes in this movie, and even like the ending credits, like even the cute little stuff that we see at the end, and even just the additional little tidbits, like oh by the way, this also is a thing. Like it just really is of informative experience, and like it's sad because like you do see life as it is, and like it's so relatable what they have to go through, but you know it's their life, you know what I'm saying. Yeah, I would definitely recommend it to basically anybody, to be honest.
Thanks, JP. Dino, would you recommend this flick?
Yeah, no doubt. Anyone that says, "Oh man, I'm really into documentaries," I'm gonna be like, "This is it." Again, being in theater and stuff like that, I would, I wish I would have known this earlier because I would have recommended it then to people. I want to put out. It was one of my favorite moments, and also because I did custom construction in college. I did a few courses on it. So, sewing and all that, we would, I started watching Project Runway because, kind of at the regular shop, you talk about like football, but costume construction, costume shop, you talk about Project Runway and what you saw the night before, So I definitely got into Project Runway there for a few years. And so anyway, the scene where like they talk about like fights happen and all that, and they fight over a mink coat. I'm like, so I was like, it's got to be what a man would wear. And then it's like, the buttons are on the right. The buttons are on the right.
It was like a bad call from a referee in a football game.
Yeah, I'm thinking laces out. I'm thinking Ace Ventura laces out, right? But like, it's like, buttons are on the right. And, it takes me back to my costume construction and my professor even, like, blah, blah, blah. And I remember putting buttons on a dress, right? Like, you have to know on what side the buttons are. And it's all, that all really started so that you can charge it more for women. It's the same fabric, but if you put the buttons on the left, then you can mark it up. So, yeah, this is up there now. Just like people that are interested, I would definitely recommend it. And it had so many things. I had some things that I knew, and then so many other things that I had no idea I wanted to know. And I loved it. I really enjoyed this. And yeah, I can say enough good things about it.
Cool. Steve. what do you got for us? Any final thoughts, and/or would you recommend this thing?
Alrighty. Final thoughts for me. I would say this is indeed what I think we all in general, except JP, he's kind of reluctant about it, but like all of us in general have been saying, which is like we really think this is one of the most important documentaries or pieces of film you could watch because you can see so much of what America even still is.
Hmm.
And it's literally these people scratching and clawing just to be able to have an equal part in the table so they can enjoy their lives and be free. And at the same time, they're dealing with like their own identity and like sexuality and like it's such a roller coaster of emotions, and they have to put themselves through really really risky situations in their lives just to like get something nice, just so they able to sew the next costume, just so they able to have another opportunity to have another day in life. Because like we were saying, and again, there's so many topics that we didn't even cover here, but the fact that like there's people literally starving just to have an opportunity to be here, it's mind-boggling. There's like all the things that just get put together to just put this incredible show, you know, this incredible night for them to just feel validated and accepted for who they are. And I thought comedians were complex once I got really into the comedy world, but man, this changed my perspective on comedy, and I'm like, comedy ain't shit compared to like all the things these individuals have to go through on like a daily basis. Because even up to this day, it still happens. Like recently here in the Caribbean, in Puerto Rico, they had like a huge protest because they killed a trans person, and yeah, like it's still ongoing. I'm happy that at least it's in the massive consciousness now that it's not so ignorant, you know, for someone to like literally know nothing about it, like I'm sure in the 80s was. But now with the rise of social media, I just think we just need, I guess, more celebrities and people actually getting in these positions of power that are trans in order for us to have more exposure to it. But I really think, man, like if you watch this documentary, you're gonna learn so much. And like I said before, like I really wish I would have seen this years ago. I'm like about to be freaking 30, and like I didn't see this till now. So thank you so much, Jason, for recommending.
Awesome. And Michaela.
I mean, I have recommended this. This is one of my favorite films of all time. Like, I'm pretty sure, like, once you become my friend, like, there's, like, a moment in our friendship where I'm like, so, have you seen Paris is Burning? And can we watch Paris is Burning?
Oh my God.
So it's definitely one of my favorite films, just because it really is a snapshot of a very specific culture, of a very, like, it's a very specific history that means so much to so many individuals. And I think it's just very important for us to be aware that this is something with so much weight behind it, and so much that we need to be aware of. You know, like there's so many things that we consider like our niche and like, but like they come from places, and we need to know where our roots are, and that I think this is a big part of that.
Cool. I would say that wrapping it up with my final thought, I would say that I loved it. I would give it a 5-star just for the way the documentary is presented.
Out of how many stars?
Out of 5.
Oh, okay.
It's to me, honestly, for the subject matter and what they were trying to do, and in that time, it is a perfect doc. Like the information is served up like film school style.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's every element is there. It doesn't leave anything out. It's presented in a way that you catch on quick. You know what they're doing. They cut back to the characters at the right time. All that stuff is it was so inspiring because I want to make a documentary one day. And as I was watching it, I'm like, this is a reference tool.
I was actually just going to add that, like, if someone says, "Oh, I want to make a documentary,"
if someone said they want to make a documentary, I would say you have to see this.
Yeah,
this is it. This
like
is
how to get involved with like a subgenre, subculture, or just a subject anyway.
Yeah,
like this is a perfect way. Like every time they would show the ball, then they would like cut to like white people in, I would imagine, Manhattan or something like that, right? Like it's so well edited, like everything, for like again early '90s, and it had no jazz, no sad jazz.
That was,
Hoops had, although Hoops is great too.
And you know what else is great about the documentary is that because of the time it was created, you get to see all the influences that came after that are a part of popular culture now. We get to see what RuPaul and Madonna and et cetera,
TikTok,
wound up becoming. It's beautiful in that way. Now, here's the thing that might be a little controversial. I wouldn't recommend it to everybody.
Okay.
Like I would recommend it to most people that I know. I wouldn't recommend it to any homophobes because they just probably wouldn't get it. They probably wouldn't like it, and they probably upset them real bad.
You see, I might start to disagree with that.
I'm totally open to disagreeing with it.
You know what I think?
But it's my recommendation.
No. The only what I think makes it like easier to swallow is that hopefully they get distracted with the ball itself, right? Because that's just entertaining. Like they put on a great show.
You might be right about that.
And it's like, who hasn't, even straight people at one point or another have been in some sort of Halloween costume competition, right?
I agree with that, but there's still some people who are going to watch it. And they're going to say, Jason, I hate you for this.
I agree. I just think that hopefully, again, talking about a masterclass of documentary, of just like, you put something that's so entertaining that hopefully it focuses people that might not be open to that subject or that idea, and that then maybe they learn something.
That is always my hope.
And I think that's what this shows. But yeah, if you tell them, oh, this is what this movie is, they're not even going to watch it.
Yeah, maybe not.
They're going to call you that word right there and there.
I think one way to sell it to anyone would be, this is really funny. You got to watch it. Trust me. It's funny, and there's enough funny parts in it where they're like, oh, I see what Jason was saying, and then they're going to learn something.
All you have to say is really funny, which again can get stereotypical and all that, but that's a way to get someone.
But that's how I would lie to anybody to do anything. I tell them that's going to be really funny.
I mean, I thought Hoops Dreams also was really funny.
Really fun. It's really funny, guys. You're going to love it. Dreams.
Then again, that's what I said in Life is Beautiful. I was like, it's funny,
That's how you sell it. That's how you sell anything. Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
Okay. So thanks for sitting with us to watch our review of Paris is Burning. Our review is just as long as the movie, so you could probably have the movie playing just right next to us as well.
But have it in silent and just listen to us for the whole time.
But thanks for tuning in and watching that with us. Steve, what do you got for us next week?
Next week, so it's my pick for my documentaries, since I haven't picked one, and it will conclude Documentary Club, at least for now.
Okay.
We'll definitely bring it back sometime because
subgenre.
I would love to bring back Documentary Club one day.
Oh, for sure. Like, this was a blast. I got exposed to so many things, and now I can't decide which one I'm going to pick. So we're going to do one more time, like we did last time I had my own pick. We have 3 selections. These are 3 documentaries that I never seen before, and one of them already got mentioned here, by the way. But I want you guys to write your numbers down somewhere, or put it on your finger behind your back, whatever it is.
Finger is gonna have to be.
And once I go 1, 2, 3, we all do the reveal. That way, there's no cheating, there's no nothing. I don't get a vote, obviously. So
I'm gonna write it backwards.
If we get 2 people, just vote for one. That's the one that's gonna go. So here we go.
All right.
Also, if you need synopsis, let me know. But for now, I'm just gonna give the title and the picture. So, number 1 documentary pick. These are not in order. These are just 3 documentaries that I would like to watch. So, one is Disclosure, which actually got mentioned here. I was smiling when that happened. Oh, look at that. So, Disclosure, that's number 1. Number 2 is I Am Not Your Negro. And number 3 is Robin Williams, Come Inside My Mind. So I'm going to repeat it one more time. Number 1, Disclosure. Number 2, I Am Not Your Negro. Number 3, Robin Williams, Come Inside My Mind.
This is really tough, man.
I know it's tough. That's why I'm gonna do another round. Number 1, Disclosure. Number 2, I'm Not Your Negro. Number 3, Robin Williams.
It's so much easier now. Okay.
Can you do it back order of the?
Okay. Number 3, Robin Williams, Come Inside My Mind. Number 2, I'm Not Your
Oh, you can do it.
And
All right.
number 1, Disclosure.
All right, I think I got it.
I'm ready.
I'm ready.
All right, everybody got their answer?
I'm not picking most change.
Is there a countdown? Is it like what are we doing?
Yeah.
The countdown. Okay, let's do an actual countdown. Reveal.
Oh,
3. So 3 has won. Robin Williams, Come Inside My Mind, for the majority vote of the Senate of JP and Jason, representing the Curly Society Extravaganza Ninja House. Griffin
We have the most electoral votes.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
So there you go. See, if you guys would have split Dino and Michaela, you guys would have won for the lighter skinned people, you know?
I will say that number 2, I Am Not Your Negro, fantastic documentary. The
I-
only reason
we
I
watched
picked
it.
is
We-
because I already saw it.
Yeah, we saw it in the theaters. Amazing.
And that's just my
documentary.
rule.
That's the
Regardless, I'm gonna watch all 3. Regardless.
I'm gonna watch all 3 too.
Yeah, because we've already seen the
I
third.
want to see Disclosure, so that's cool.
There you go. So for Michaela Extravaganza, JP, Jason Echoes, Eldon Dino, and Steve That's TV, we'll catch you next week. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Vote, everybody. Vote.
Oh, we're both. I was just clapping.
Throw shade.
Hi, I'm JP Cerno and welcome. Hi, I'm JP Cerno and thank you for watching Oye Dimelo. Hi, I'm JP Cerno and thank you for watching Oye Dimelo. Fucking shit. Okay. Hey, I'm JP Cerno and thank you for watching Oye Dimelo. Right?
Whole time,
Jesus
not even a
Christ.
flow.
And as soon as it's the third one, because this is the third one, right? I am JP Cerno, and thank you for watching Oye Dimelo, Oye Dimelo, supercut of every time I fuck it up. Hey, I'm JP Cerno, and thank you for watching Oye Dimelo. Hey, I'm JP Cerno, and thank you for watching Oye Dimelo Network. And click here for additional videos, and don't forget to subscribe. The lonely singles in your neighborhood already did.